The first lie sounds almost gentle as it leaves his mouth, floating up toward the glass-domed ceiling like it weighs nothing. "She lunged at me," Officer Blake says, voice smooth, hand resting on the Bible he just swore upon. "I feared for my safety." Amara Bennett feels every gaze in the courtroom pressing into the back of her neck. Gold trim glints along the mahogany rail, chandeliers throwing soft light on her cuffed wrists, like this is some terrible theater production. High ceilings, marble floors, expensive silence, and she is the danger everyone's already decided on before she speaks a word. If this room had a smell, it would be money. Even with all the old wood and polished stone, the scent of it seeps through. Expensive cologne, dry-cleaned suits, leather briefcases that cost more than a month's rent. The 5th District Courthouse was designed to be impressive, with its cathedral-high ceiling of frosted glass and the enormous state seal mounted above the judge's bench in real gold leaf. Amara sits at the defense table in a jumpsuit the color of dishwater, ankles shackled, wrists cuffed in front of her. Beside her, a public defender she met exactly 20 minutes ago flips through a thin folder like it's somehow going to get heavier if he just keeps turning the pages. On the stand, Officer Daniel Blake looks like he belongs here. He's tall in that lean, effortless way. Uniform pressed, brown hair trimmed neatly at the sides, badge catching the light every time he moves. The jurors, 6 people whose faces blur together when Amara tries to look at them, watch him with open trust. "He was on a magazine cover once," her aunt had whispered earlier, back in the gallery. "The city did a Heroes of Downtown thing. That's him." A hero. Right. Amara studies him now, her eyes narrowed just a fraction. Up until 3 days ago, she had never seen his face. Now it feels like the entire narrative of her life might hinge on whether 12 strangers believe him or believe her. Spoiler. So far, they don't look like they're leaning her way. "Describe the encounter for the court, Officer Blake," the prosecutor says. He's a white guy, too, mid-40s, with the kind of jawline that probably impressed people in debate club. He paces a little in front of the witness stand, his designer Oxfords whispering against marble. Blake nods, folding his hands in his lap, posture relaxed. "Yes, sir. I was on patrol, off-duty but in uniform, working a detail at the Sterling Regent Hotel." Even hearing the name makes Amara's stomach clench. Sterling Regent. All crystal vases and live orchids and thick carpets that swallow sound. It's the kind of place where people like her are either invisible or security problems. Nothing in between. "When I observed the defendant loitering in the main lobby," Blake continues, "she didn't appear to be a guest. No luggage, hood up. She was moving around in a way that raised suspicion." Hood up? Amara's mouth tightens. It had been raining, like actual water from the sky. Not that anyone seems interested in that detail. "Had there been recent incidents of theft in that area?" the prosecutor asks. "Yes, sir," Blake says smoothly. "We'd had a string of cell phone and wallet thefts from guests. We'd been briefed to look out for individuals who might be casing the property." Individuals. People like her, he means. Blake gestures with one open palm, as if to include the whole room. "I approached the defendant calmly, identified myself, and asked if she was a guest at the hotel and if she'd be willing to show some ID. She immediately became agitated and non-compliant. It's the word non-compliant that does something to the air in the room. Amara feels it. A tiny shift in the way the judge's eyes narrow, the way someone in the second row of the gallery leans forward. Her public defender. Mr. Clark, he said his name was, like that's supposed to be comforting. Jot something down. The pen scrapes the paper faintly. It sounds too loud in her ears. "She raised her voice," Blake continues, "accused me of harassing her, and when I requested that she step outside so we could avoid disturbing other guests, she refused. At that point, based on her behavior and the nature of recent criminal activity, I had reason to detain her for questioning. "And what happened when you attempted to detain her?" the prosecutor asks. Blake's face shifts just slightly. He looks down, then up, like the memory pains him. "She pulled away from me, hard. Then she lunged. Her fist came up." He lifts his own hand, makes a quick, controlled motion, "and struck me here." He touches his cheekbone, where the faintest yellow bruise lingers like a stage direction. "That's when I feared for my safety," he says, the phrase rolling off his tongue like he's said it 100 times. "I had no idea if she was armed. I followed training. I took her to the ground and called for backup." There's a crackle of murmurs in the gallery. Amara hears the words without hearing them. Aggressive. These kids. Such a shame. Her aunt, Layla, is somewhere back there. The thought of her makes Amara's chest tighten in a different way. Layla's nails had been digging into her knee earlier. A silent plea. "Don't say anything stupid. Don't make it worse." The worst part is how badly Amara wants to laugh. Feared for my safety. In that gilded lobby with a dozen people watching, her backpack slipping off one shoulder, earbuds still tangled in her hoodie strings. He had a gun, a baton, a radio, and the entire weight of the badge on his chest. She had homework and a dead phone. "Did you at any point use force that you consider excessive?" the prosecutor asks. "No, sir," Blake says, right on cue. "I used the minimum necessary to get the situation under control. For everyone's safety, including hers." The judge nods as if that's reasonable. The court reporter's fingers tick across the keys of the stenotype machine, freezing the lie in permanent text. Amara stares at the polished wood surface of the table until her reflection stares back. Brown skin dulled by fluorescent light, curls crushed under the jail-issued elastic. The hollow beneath her eyes is new. So is the heavy, yawning quiet inside her. Until 3 days ago, she might have yelled. She might have let her voice climb over his, sharp with fury and disbelief. Now, with the weight of shackles on her ankles and a possible felony charge hanging over her head, she does the thing nobody expects of her. She sits very still. It had been raining hard enough to bend the streetlights. Amara remembers that more clearly than anything. The way the water hammered the sidewalk outside the Sterling Regent, turning the city into blurred streaks of red and white and gold. Inside, the lobby might as well have been another world. She had stood just inside the sliding glass doors, backpack clinging damply to one shoulder, sneakers leaving faint wet prints on the marble. The space spread out before her like a hotel in a movie. 2 sweeping staircases curling up towards a mezzanine, a chandelier dripping glass prisms, a grand piano that nobody was playing. Every surface screamed wealth. Even the air smelled different, not like the bus or the school hallway, but like citrus and polished brass and something floral she couldn't name. Her phone, which she'd stared at for the last 5 minutes on the bus, was dead. Big surprise. The plan had been simple. Wait in the lobby, charge her phone if she could find an outlet, text Aunt Layla to say, "I'm here." Then wait for the black town car with the discreet government plates to pull up. Like always. Except the town car was late. 20 minutes, then 30. The digital clock above the concierge desk flicked over, the red numbers glowing 5:43, 5:44. Rain skated in sheets down the glass as people swanned through the revolving doors in dry-cleaned coats, rolling sleek suitcases, tapping on shiny phones. She shifted from foot to foot, hugging herself against the overactive air conditioning. She was painfully aware of how out of place she looked. Thrift store jeans, hoodie with the school's faded lion mascot, frizzing hair pulled into a puff that had definitely seen better days. She had shoved her earbuds in just to have something to do with her hands. Not that any sound came through the dead phone. After 10 minutes of awkwardly pretending to read one of the glossy magazines on the gilded side table, she found a marble column and leaned against it. People flowed around her like she was a piece of furniture. For a few minutes, that was almost a relief. Then she noticed the security guard. He stood near the concierge desk, thick around the middle in a blazer a size too small, a brass name tag shining above his pocket. His eyes kept flicking back to her, quick and assessing. She pretended not to see, tracing the veins in the marble with her gaze. He picked up a phone. He turned his back to her, but not enough. Something in her stomach dipped. "Come on, Aunt Lai," she thought, pulse ticking in her throat. "Where are you?" As if summoned, her aunt's last text fluttered across memory. "Car's picking you up at the Regent at 5:30. Don't be late, baby, and don't tell your mom you're coming early." I want to surprise her. Of course, Amara had wanted to surprise her. Naomi Bennett, Attorney General of the state, queen of carefully controlled time slots and overbooked calendars. The plan was to show up at her office an hour early with cupcakes and balloons for her 49th birthday, courtesy of Aunt Layla's scheming. They'd eat in the office, probably. Laugh. Maybe talk about something that wasn't politics for once. The idea had filled Amara with a warm, fizzy hope, a normal moment, a family moment. Now, standing in the sheen of the sterling Regent, hope curdled into something sour. The security guard hung up and headed straight toward her, shoulders set with the grim determination of someone marching into battle. When he reached her, he planted himself just close enough to make moving away feel like surrender. "Excuse me, miss," he said, his tone already edged. "Can I help you with something?" Amara pulled one earbud out. "No, I'm good. Just waiting for my ride." He glanced pointedly at her damp sneakers, then at the empty space beside her. "You a guest at this hotel?" "I'm waiting for a car," she said, at the same time thinking bitterly. "Do I look like I can afford to be?" "Uh-huh." His lips tightened. "You can wait outside." "It's raining," she said. "We have guests coming in and out," he said. "This area's for guests only." She looked around. People were milling everywhere. A couple arguing in low, intense whispers by the elevators. A businesswoman tapping away at a laptop in an armchair. A kid about 7 bouncing on the edge of the lobby fountain. Nobody looked more out of place than her. And yet, "I'm not bothering anyone," she said, keeping her voice level. His eyes hardened. "You can wait outside, or I can call someone to escort you off the property. Your choice." He wasn't talking about another security guard. She felt the implication like the thud of a door closing. "Okay," she said slowly. "Wow, I just told you. My ride's picking me up here. They told me to wait in the lobby." "You're trespassing," he snapped, the word landing heavy. "If you don't leave, I'm calling PD." "Are you serious?" The words escaped sharper than she'd intended. "Because I'm standing here quietly? You got rules against being black and waiting now?" A couple of people glanced over. The kid by the fountain paused mid-bounce, eyes wide, the guard's jaw clenched. "That's it," he muttered, already reaching for his radio. "You can explain it to the officer." She should have left then. She should have stepped back into the curtain of rain and waited out front, let her sneakers soak through, let the cold eat into her bones. That's what she'd tell herself later, replaying it in the dead, endless hours in the holding cell. But humiliation has a way of stiffening the spine. She stayed. Back in the courtroom, the security guard, Mr. Tully, according to the name tag Amara had memorized, is nowhere to be seen. It's just Blake and his story, spinning out longer and longer. "Did the defendant say anything to you while she was resisting?" the prosecutor asks. Blake nods gravely. She used profanity, called me a pig, said she didn't have to listen to some racist cop, words to that effect. Someone in the jury flinches, or maybe Amara imagines it. She was loud enough that other guests started to move away, Blake adds, as though that matters. At that point, I knew I had to get control of the scene. The prosecutor steps back, satisfied. No further questions, Your Honor. The judge, a woman in her 60s with a face like carved limestone, turns toward the defense table. Mr. Clark, your witness. Clark stands, buttoning his jacket. He's not bad-looking, in a pudgy, exhausted way, but he has the aura of a man who's lost more battles than he's won. He takes a moment, glances at his notes, then walks over to the witness stand. Officer Blake, he begins. You mentioned that the hotel had experienced several thefts in recent weeks. Yes, sir. Were there any suspects in those cases? Not at that time, no. Any reports that specifically described a teenage black girl in a red hoodie? Blake hesitates. No. Any reports that specifically described anyone matching Ms. Bennett's appearance at all? No, Blake says, sharper now. So when you approached her, you weren't acting on any tip or bolo. You were acting on your own impressions, correct? Blake's fingers tighten just a fraction on the rail of the witness stand. I was acting on my training and experience. Which told you what exactly? That she looked out of place? The prosecutor rises. Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered. Counsel is arguing. Sustained, the judge says. Her gaze passes over Amara like she's something spilled on the floor. Mr. Clark, keep your questions within proper bounds. Clark nods, swallowing. Of course, Your Honor. He turns back to Blake. Officer, is your body camera always active while on duty? Yes, sir. Department policy. Was it active during this encounter? Yes, sir. And is that footage available to the court? The prosecutor is on his feet again before Blake can answer. Objection. The footage in question is the subject of an ongoing internal review and is not currently admissible. Internal review? Clark repeats, eyebrows up. Since when? The prosecutor lifts a sheet of paper. Since it was discovered that the device malfunctioned during the encounter, resulting in incomplete recording. The department is investigating possible technical issues. Convenient. The word claws at the back of Amara's throat. Malfunctioned, Clark says, voice very calm. Is there evidence of that malfunction on the video itself? There's a gap, the prosecutor says curtly. The device cuts out. That's all the department has shared at this time. Judge Hanley sighs, the sound crisp as tearing paper. Mr. Clark, as you know, I already ruled in pre-trial that without complete footage and without a technical report, the video is more prejudicial than probative. You can ask about the existence of a camera, but not its contents. Move along. Clark presses his lips together. For a second, he looks like he might push. Then his shoulders deflate the tiniest bit. Yes, Your Honor. He turns back to Blake. So, officer, just to be clear, the jury will have to rely on your word as to what happened when the camera malfunctioned. Correct? Blake's eyes flick to the jury, then back. They'll have to rely on my sworn testimony, yes. His voice is steady. Why wouldn't it be? The room is on his side. Amara's mother once told her that institutions were like rivers, steady, powerful, following well-worn channels unless something immense forced them to change course. Sitting there with steel around her ankles, she feels the current roaring, dragging her toward a place with cinder block walls and no windows. Thank you, Clark says, though it sounds like surrender. No further questions. He returns to the table, sinking into his chair. As he does, he leans slightly toward her. I'm doing what I can, he murmurs, too low for anyone else. But they've stacked this. The best shot is a plea, maybe obstruction instead of assault on an officer. We can probably get it down. Assault on an officer. The words still feel unreal, like dialogue from a show she would have hated. A plea? She whispers back, heat rising in her chest. For something I didn't do? He looks genuinely pained. If the jury believes him, you're looking at up to 3 years, Amara. First offense, sure, but the system wants a win on this. They don't like backing off when it's one of their own. If we take a deal, we can argue for probation. She stares at him. So your advice is I should say I'm guilty. My advice, he says, choosing each word carefully, is that we make the best of a bad situation. You can talk it over with your guardian during lunch recess. My guardian? She repeats. Your aunt, he says. Unless your mother... He trails off, a question hanging in the space between them. Amara looks away. Unless your mother shows up, she hears instead. Unless the great Naomi Bennett descends from her marble tower because her daughter is in trouble. If Naomi knows yet, she's given no sign. No thunder of arriving motorcades outside. No high heels clicking down the polished corridor. No carefully modulated voice saying, Your Honor, the Attorney General requests a moment with her daughter. Nothing. Lunch recess is 40 minutes away. 40 minutes until they ask her to plead guilty to a lie. In the holding room off the courtroom, the walls are painted a shade of beige that feels like giving up. Amara sits in a plastic chair bolted to the floor, wrists cuffed in front of her, ankles chained to a ring at the base of the chair. The fluorescent lights hum. Somewhere down the hall, a door slams, followed by the muted drone of an officer's voice. Aunt Layla is the only one allowed inside with her. She perches on the edge of the second chair, fingers twisted so tightly around her bag strap that her knuckles are white. Her hair, cornrows straight back into a neat bun, isn't as immaculate as it was this morning. A few wisps have escaped and hang around her face like question marks. Baby, she says, voice cracking. You're sure there isn't something you're not telling me? The worst part is the way she says it, like she's begging Amara to lie in the right direction. Amara's head snaps up. Are you serious right now? I'm just trying to understand, Layla says, eyes shining. I know you. You talk back, you get mouthy, yeah, but you don't just hit a cop. I didn't, Amara says, the words sharp and tired all at once. He grabbed me. I pulled away. That's it. I tripped when he pushed me down. My elbow hit him on the way, maybe. And then he acted like I'd tried to knock him out. Layla exhales shakily. I believe you. I do. But belief doesn't... She breaks off, swallowing. They're acting like this is already decided. Because it is, Amara says quietly. Silence presses in on them. Mr. Clark knocks once before stepping inside, like he's entering a room that belongs to someone else. Ms. Bennett, he says to Layla, then nods at Amara. We have about 15 minutes before we're back on the record. I need to know where you stand on the plea. Tell him, Layla says, gaze flicking between them. Tell him we're not taking it. Your mother'll... Her mother doesn't know, Amara cuts in. That stops everything. Clark's eyebrows rise. Layla's head swivels slowly, eyes narrowing. What do you mean she doesn't know? I mean, you told me not to tell her, Amara says. Remember? Let's not ruin her birthday surprise with, I might go to jail, okay? That was before they decided to put you on trial like a grown woman, Layla shoots back. Her voice pitches higher, full of frantic guilt. I thought they'd book you. We'd bail you out, get a good lawyer fast, handle it. I didn't know they were gonna... She waves a hand, encompassing the whole courthouse, the whole mess. Mr. Clark looks like someone has just handed him a live grenade. Wait, the Attorney General is your mother? Amara stares at the scuffed floor. Yeah. As in Naomi Bennett? Attorney General Naomi Bennett? There are other Naomi Bennetts running the Justice Department? Layla snaps. Clark swears under his breath, then immediately looks guilty for swearing in front of them. Why didn't you say anything? Amara lifts her chin. Because it shouldn't matter. Her aunt puts a hand over her mouth, like she can physically hold in the sound she wants to make. Clark's eyes are wide behind his smudged glasses. With respect, he says carefully, it absolutely matters. If the AG's daughter is on trial for assaulting a police officer, that's not just a case. That's politics, optics, careers. The fact that no one in that courtroom knows who you are? That's strange. He paces a short, agitated line, chains at Amara's ankles clinking softly as she shifts. The DA's office should have at least considered the fallout. Unless they think she won't show, Amara finishes for him. Which so far they're right. The words land heavier than she means. She sees it in Layla's face, sees the flash of defensive anger. Don't you do that, Layla says. Don't you start that story. Your mama loves you. Sure, Amara mutters, from wherever she's flying this week. She's here, Layla says, in the city. Her office is 10 blocks away. Then maybe she just forgot she has a daughter scheduled in courtroom 4 today, Amara says. Easy mistake. Layla's eyes flash. You know that's not fair. None of this is fair, Amara says, her voice breaking on the last word. Mr. Clark raises both hands in a peace gesture. We're getting off track. Look, whether your mother comes or not, we have to decide right now how to proceed. They're offering to drop the assault to resisting arrest and disorderly conduct. You'd still have a record, but no prison time, likely probation and community service. If we roll the dice and lose, the judge can and probably will impose custodial time. You're telling a 16-year-old to accept a lie because the truth doesn't have good PR, Layla says, disbelief roughening her voice. I'm telling my client, Clark says, the reality of this courtroom. He looks at Amara, and his voice softens. If you were my daughter, I'd tell you the same. The system isn't built for you to win here. Not as you. Not as you. A black teen girl in a jumpsuit, not an attorney general's kid in a blazer and ballet flats with a parent on every side. Amara tastes metal in the back of her throat. Fear, maybe. Rage. They're blurrier up close than she expected. How long? She asks quietly. Would I have to be on probation? A year, maybe 2. It depends. The judge has discretion. But you'd be home. You'd go back to school. This would fade. If we fight and lose, it follows you longer. Fade. Like a bruise, like the one on Blake's face. She thinks about the way his eyes had met hers when he took the stand. Steady, almost bored. The casual cruelty of knowing his word weighs more than her whole life. She thinks about the hotel lobby, his grip on her arm, the flare of pain when her elbow hit marble, the flash of satisfaction on his face when the cuffs closed. You want to disappear? Fine. I'll make you disappear. The memory sends a shiver through her. Call her, Layla says suddenly. Both Amara and Clark look up. Call who? Clark asks, though the answer is obvious. Naomi, Layla says. We should have done it the second they put cuffs on you. I was trying to protect her, her image, her calendar, whatever. Screw that. She deserves to know. You deserve her here. Amara's stomach drops. She's busy, she says reflexively. She is your mother, Layla fires back, and she is the highest-ranking legal official in this state. If she hears that some cop is lying on you in open court and she does nothing, that's between her and God, but you at least have to let her choose. The room feels suddenly too small, the air too thin. Amara looks at the wall clock. 10 minutes. If we call her, Mr. Clark says slowly, and she comes in as the Attorney General, The dynamic shifts. Not a lot of judges can ignore that presence, and the DA's office will have to rethink whether they want this fight. Oh. Can she make it go away? Amara asks, hearing the naked hope in her own voice and hating it. She can't magic the case away mid-trial without serious accusations of impropriety, Clark says, but she can demand the body cam footage. She can demand the internal review file. She might be able to introduce things I can't, or at least leverage her office to get them, and the DA might suddenly be very open to reconsidering the charges. It all sounds unreal, like a TV show where the powerful parent swoops in at the last second. And yet... Phone call, Layla says. Now. Amara stares at the table. A memory nudges at her. 7 years old, sitting in the back of a campaign town hall, legs swinging, watching her mother at a podium. Naomi's voice booming, controlled and strong as she said something about justice not being an abstraction, but a practice, a discipline. Afterward, Naomi had picked her up and spun her around, laughing, lipstick smudged tiredly at the corners. "That's my girl," she'd said, "watching me like I matter." "Yeah," Amara whispers now, to no one in particular. "Okay." Layla jumps up, crossing to the door. "Officer?" she calls. "She needs to make a call. To her mother. It's urgent." There's a muffled response. A minute later, a corrections officer steps in, keys jangling. "She gets 1 5-minute call," he says. "No more delays after that, got it?" Amara nods, throat tight. They unlock one wrist from the chain long enough to hand her a phone. A black, institutional handset attached to the wall by a coiled cord. The keypad is sticky. Her fingers tremble and hit the wrong digits twice before she manages her mother's direct cell number. It rings. Once, twice, 3 times. She imagines Naomi at her desk, surrounded by stacks of files, her assistant hovering in the doorway with a schedule. She imagines the phone vibrating against polished wood, ignored. On the 4th ring, a click. Naomi Bennett. No hello, just the name, clipped and precise. "Mom." Amara's voice sounds small even to herself. There's a pause, almost imperceptible. "Amara? Honey, what's wrong? I'm in the middle of..." "I'm in court," Amara blurts. "Like, in court. There was this cop at the Sterling Regent, and he arrested me. He said I hit him, but I didn't. They charged me with assault on an officer. They're trying to get me to take a plea. I'm in courtroom 4, right now. We're on recess." The silence on the other end is different this time. It expands, heavy and sharp-edged. "Which courthouse?" Naomi asks, her voice lower. "5th District," Amara says. "Downtown." Another beat. She can almost hear gears shifting. "Put your attorney on the phone," Naomi says. Amara looks over at Mr. Clark, eyes wide. Slowly, she presses the handset to his ear. "Hello, Ms. Bennett," he says, suddenly sounding very formal. "Yes, ma'am. I'm her public defender. James Clark?" "Yes." He swallows. "No, ma'am, I didn't know. I would have reached out sooner, but yes. Yes. We're mid-trial. Officer Blake. Daniel Blake." He pauses, listening. "Yes, that Officer Blake, I gather. The body cam footage is unavailable. Malfunction." He holds the phone slightly away from his ear, as if the force of her mother's words might burn. "Yes, ma'am. I understand. We have about 5 minutes before we're back." A pause. "Understood. I'll request a brief recess extension and inform the court that you're on your way." He hands the phone back to Amara. "She wants to talk to you again." Amara presses it to her ear, heart hammering. "I'm 10 minutes away," Naomi says. The controlled calm in her voice has shifted into something steelier. "I want you to listen to me very carefully, baby." "Okay," Amara breathes. "You say nothing about a plea. You say nothing at all unless your lawyer tells you to. You do not let them scare you into owning a lie. Do you understand me?" Tears prick behind Amara's eyes. She blinks them back, hard. Yes. And Amara? Yeah? I am so sorry you're sitting there without me, Naomi says. The words are quiet, like they've cost her something to pull out. That changes now. The line clicks dead. For the first time in 3 days, the room feels like it has walls that might hold. Naomi Bennett enters the courtroom like she owns it, even though technically she doesn't. The bailiff announces her, because of course he does. All rise, he calls out, voice echoing off the marble. The Honorable Naomi Bennett, Attorney General of the state, appearing before the court. People stand reflexively, confused. Judge Hanley blinks, momentarily disoriented, before regaining her composure and sinking back into her high-backed chair. Please be seated, she says. To Naomi, she adds, Madam Attorney General, this is an unexpected visit. Naomi is small in stature, but the room bends around her anyway. Her dark suit is impeccably tailored, the deep navy fabric catching the light in subtle ways. Her hair is braided close to her scalp. No nonsense. A strand of pearls gleams at her throat, the only ornament she ever permits while in an official capacity. She nods to the judge. Good afternoon, Your Honor. I apologize for the disruption. I was informed my daughter is the defendant in this matter. A susurrus of whispers surges through the gallery. Her daughter? The AG's kid? The jury looks rattled, eyes darting between Amara, who sits frozen, heart pounding, and her mother, who stands tall behind the prosecution's table, clutching a leather folio. Judge Hanley's expression softens by a hair. Ms. Bennett, I was unaware of the familial relation. So was I, Naomi says evenly, until 15 minutes ago. The words carry no overt accusation, but they land on the prosecutor like a weight. He clears his throat. Madam Attorney General, with respect, this is a routine assault on an officer case. I'm sure you understand we handled dozens. Naomi turns her head slowly toward him. I understand many things, she says, including that your office chose to pursue a felony charge against a 16-year-old with no prior record in a public venue, against an officer whose body cam is conveniently inoperable, and that no one thought it relevant to inform me that said 16-year-old is my child, though my office and yours communicate daily. The prosecutor flushes. We were operating on the assumption that you would wish to avoid any appearance of impropriety, Madam Attorney General. We didn't want to compromise your position. With respect, Mr. Castillo, Naomi says, you have managed to do exactly that. Judge Hanley raps her gavel once. Counsel, Ms. Bennett, let's maintain order. She looks at Naomi, eyes narrowing. How do you intend to proceed here, Madam Attorney General? You are not counsel of record. No, Your Honor, Naomi says, I am not. I do not intend to replace Mr. Clark. I am here as a mother. She pauses, then adds, and as the chief legal officer of this state, concerned about the integrity of a proceeding involving an officer who is currently the subject of at least 3 excessive force complaints. The room goes very still. Amara feels something shift inside her, a click, like a lock turning. She stares at her mother's back, at the squared set of her shoulders. For the first time in days, she isn't the only one saying, "This isn't right." Those complaints are unsubstantiated, the prosecutor sputters. 2 are pending, Naomi corrects, flipping open her folio. 1 resulted in a settlement paid by the city. I have the documents here if the court would like to review them. Judge Hanley pinches the bridge of her nose. How did you obtain those records so quickly? Naomi's mouth curls at one corner. Your Honor, I run the office that signs off on half of them. There's a faint chuckle from somewhere in the gallery, quickly smothered. I'm not moving to dismiss on that basis, Naomi continues. I understand the difference between allegations and proof. What I am asking, She hands a sheet of paper to the bailiff, who brings it up to the bench. "Is that the court grant a brief continuance to allow the introduction of additional evidence that has come to my attention." Judge Hanley scans the document, lips pursed. "This is a request for emergency admission of digital records," she says. "Body cam logs, dispatch transcripts, hotel security footage." "Correct," Naomi says. "The defense already requested the body cam footage," the judge notes. "It was unavailable due to malfunction." "With respect," Naomi says, "the footage is not unavailable. It is incomplete. There is a difference." The prosecutor shakes his head. "Your Honor, this is wildly irregular. The Attorney General cannot just march in here and—" "Mr. Castillo," Judge Hanley interrupts, her voice sharp. "If the state has additional records that are material to the case, I am obligated to consider them. The jury has the right to a full picture. So does the defendant." She looks at Naomi again. "How soon can you produce this evidence?" "Immediately," Naomi says. "The files are already en route to the court's secure server. My office obtained them under our oversight authority over law enforcement records. The body cam logs, in particular, are illuminating." Amara watches the prosecutor's Adam's apple bob as he swallows. "Very well," the judge says. "We will take a 15-minute recess to allow IT to confirm receipt and compatibility. Court is in recess." The gavel cracks down. Chairs scrape. Voices rise. As the courtroom begins to churn, Naomi finally turns fully toward the defense table. Their eyes meet. For a moment, the marble floors, the gold trim, the badges and bench and jury all fall away. It is just a mother and daughter in a room neither of them chose. Naomi's gaze softens. She moves to the defense table, stopping just short of being close enough to touch. "Hi, baby," she says quietly. "Hey," Amara croaks. "You okay?" Naomi asks. "No," Amara says honestly. Naomi nods, like she appreciates the lack of pretense. "I'm here now." She glances down at the chains around Amara's ankles, her jaw tightening. "And I'm not leaving until this is done." "You shouldn't be involved," Amara blurts, the words tumbling out faster than she means. "They're going to say you used your position, that you interfered, that you're—" "They can say what they like," Naomi says. "My job is to pursue justice, even when it's messy, especially then." She leans in, lowering her voice. "You told me the truth, Amara. I heard it in your voice. I trust you. That's enough for me to do my job." Something in Amara's chest cracks, letting air in where there hadn't been any. "I'm sorry," she whispers. "For what?" Naomi asks, genuinely baffled. For needing you." Naomi's eyes go bright. "Oh, honey, that's the one thing you never have to apologize for. By the time court reconvenes, the atmosphere has changed." The jurors look unsettled now, whispering together in low tones until the bailiff calls for order. The gallery is packed tighter. Word has clearly traveled beyond the courtroom walls. Reporters hover near the door, held back by the stern gaze of a court officer. Judge Hanley takes her seat. "We are back on the record in State v. Bennett," she says. "During recess, the court received digital files from the Attorney General's office, including body camera activation logs from Officer Blake's device, radio dispatch transcripts, and security footage from the Sterling Regent Hotel. Counsel have had a brief opportunity to review the material." She looks over her glasses at the prosecutor. "Mr. Castillo, does the state have any objections to the admission of these records?" Castillo's jaw flexes. "Your Honor, we question the timing and the chain of custody. These materials were not part of discovery." "The body cam logs were always part of discovery," Naomi interjects from the second row, where she now sits, technically a member of the public. "Your office simply neglected to request them." Castillo shoots her a look that could strip paint, then returns his gaze to the bench. We also question the prejudicial impact of showing a partially recorded incident, especially when the audio is missing for key portions. The jury has already heard testimony about the incident, Judge Hanley says. I believe they are capable of understanding incomplete footage. She turns to Clark. Mr. Clark, do you move for admission? Yes, Your Honor, Clark says, sounding more confident than he has all day. The presence of Naomi in the second row seems to have put steel in his spine. Motion to admit is granted, the judge says. We'll proceed carefully. Officer Blake, please return to the stand. Blake rises from the prosecution's table, his expression composed but less relaxed than before. He takes the stand, is reminded he remains under oath. Mr. Castillo, you may continue, the judge says. I assume you'll want to examine your own witness regarding these records. Castillo nods stiffly. Yes, Your Honor. He clears his throat. Officer Blake, you've had a chance to review the body cam activation logs provided by the Attorney General's office? Yes, sir, Blake says. These logs show that your camera was activated at 17:38 hours and deactivated at 17:44. Is that consistent with your recollection? Yes, Blake says. Approximately. And during that time, you encountered the defendant in the hotel lobby? Yes. Your Honor, Castillo says, forcing the words out, the state would request that we play the available portion of the body cam footage for the jury. The judge nods. Proceed. The lights dim slightly as the court monitor flickers to life. A date and time stamp appear in the corner, 0514, 1738-12. The image is shaky at first, then stabilizes. The camera's perspective is from Blake's chest, angled slightly downward, capturing polished floors, the edge of a concierge desk, the blur of people moving in and out of frame. And there, Amara. She watches herself on screen, smaller than she feels, shoulders hunched in her red hoodie, backpack lopsided. She's standing by the marble column, staring at the floor, earbuds dangling from one ear. Blake's voice comes through, slightly muffled but clear enough. Excuse me, miss, you a guest here? Amara on screen looks up, eyes wary but calm. I'm waiting for my ride. Uh-huh. You got a room key? Blake asks. No, she says. I'm just meeting my ride here. Then you can wait outside, Blake says. It's raining, she replies, glancing towards the doors. So? Blake says. This isn't a bus stop. You can't hang around. The sound of the lobby hums beneath their words. Distant clinks, soft music, a phone ringing. No raised voices. No scene. I'm not hanging around, Video Amara says, irritation creeping in. I'm literally just standing here. Don't get smart with me, Blake snaps, stepping closer. The camera angle shifts abruptly as he closes the distance, the frame filling with Amara's face. Her eyes flash, but she doesn't move. Sir, I'm waiting for my ride like I said, she replies. They told me to wait inside. I'm not bothering anybody. You think you can talk to me like that? Blake's voice hardens. You think I won't do something about it? Because I said I'm not leaving, Amara counters. Her voice is louder now, but not shouting. What? You got rules about who's allowed to stand near the rich people? Someone in the jury snorts before catching themselves. Blake's hand enters the frame, jabbing a finger toward the door. You need to go. Now. On the bench, Judge Hanley leans slightly forward. In the video, Amara crosses her arms. I'm not going out in a storm because you've got a power trip. My ride'll be here any minute. I'm not doing anything wrong. Blake's hand grabs her forearm. The jury sees it. Everyone sees it. Amara flinches on screen, trying to pull back. Hey, don't touch me. You're trespassing, Blake says, gripping tighter. You want to resist a lawful order, that's on you. I'm not resisting, she says, tugging. Let go, you're hurting me. Stop resisting, he barks, louder now. Stop resisting. The phrase is a script. Everyone in the room has heard it on the news. Seeing it applied to a girl whose shoulders barely reach Blake's chest sends a visible shudder through the jury box. As Amara jerks her arm back, her elbow connects with Blake's torso. The motion is reflexive, defensive. He grunts, but it's minor. "This is your last warning," Video Blake snarls. "Hands behind your back." "I didn't do anything," Amara says, fear entering her voice. "Why are you—" The frame lurches as Blake spins her around. The camera captures the blur of marble and chandelier. Then her face again. Closer now, eyes wide and wet. The lobby noise spikes as a couple of guests look over, murmuring. "Back off, man. She's a kid," someone says faintly. The timestamp ticks over to 17:44:02. The image freezes. Then, static. The recording cuts out. The monitor goes black. In the silence that follows, the sound of someone shifting in their chair is absurdly loud. Judge Hanley speaks first. "Officer Blake, is that where the malfunction occurred?" Blake's face is pale. "Yes, Your Honor," he says stiffly. "That's where the footage ends." "And the lunge you described in your testimony?" Clark asks, stepping forward. "Where is that on the tape?" Blake swallows. "It happened after the recording cut off. So the jury has just seen the defendant standing in a lobby, arguing with you and pulling her arm away," Clark says. "At what point, exactly, did she suddenly become the aggressor?" "She struck me with her elbow while resisting," Blake says, voice rising. "You saw it." "I saw her pull away from your grip," Clark replies. "I saw you escalate a verbal disagreement into a physical altercation." "Counsel," the judge warns. Naomi's voice cuts through the tension. "Your Honor, may I?" she asks. Hanley hesitates. "This is highly irregular," she says, "but given the unique circumstances, I'll allow a limited question period as an officer of the court. Proceed carefully, Madam Attorney General." Naomi stands, smoothing the front of her suit. She approaches the witness stand, every step measured. "Officer Blake," she says, "you are aware that body cam devices automatically log manual deactivations, correct?" He blinks. "Yes." "And that those logs are time-stamped?" "Yes." Naomi holds up a printed sheet. "According to the log from your device on May 14th, the camera was manually powered off at 17:44. 4. That would be 2 seconds after the footage we just saw cut out. Does that sound accurate?" Blake shifts. "If that's what the log says." "So the device did not malfunction on its own?" Naomi continues. "You turned it off." There was a problem with the—" "Please answer the question, officer," Naomi says, her tone clipped. "Did you manually deactivate your body camera while in the process of detaining a citizen?" Beads of sweat gather at Blake's hairline. "I hit the button by accident," he says. "It happens. Those devices are sensitive." "Yet the log shows no attempt to reactivate it during the remaining several minutes of your interaction with my daughter," Naomi says. "Did you accidentally fail to turn it back on as well?" "I was focused on controlling a violent suspect," Blake snaps, composure cracking. "I didn't have time to worry about the damn camera." "In other words," Naomi says softly, "you chose to continue an arrest without recording, contrary to departmental policy." The jury is riveted. Even Castillo doesn't object, watching his witness crumble. Naomi's gaze doesn't waver. "Let's move on. You testified that you feared my daughter might be armed. Did you conduct a search of her person?" "Yes." "Did you find a weapon?" "No." "Did she at any point threaten to use a weapon?" "No," he mutters. "Did she at any point verbally threaten to harm you?" He opens his mouth, closes it. She was aggressive." "That was not my question," Naomi says. "Did she threaten to harm you?" "No," he says, the word barely audible. Naomi nods once, then steps back. "No further questions, Your Honor." Castillo looks down at his notes, as if they belong to someone else. Judge Hanley pinches the bridge of her nose again. "Officer Blake," she says slowly, "you may step down." He moves stiffly, like a marionette whose strings have tangled. "Mr. Castillo," the judge continues, "in light of this new evidence, do you wish to proceed?" There is a long, brittle pause. "No, Your Honor," Castillo says finally, his shoulders sagging almost imperceptibly. "The state moves to dismiss the charge of assault on an officer with prejudice. We also move to amend the information to remove the felony charge." Amara's heart stutters. Her ears ring. "With prejudice?" Clark repeats, as if he's not sure he heard correctly. That means they cannot refile the same charge. "Yes," Castillo says, his jaw tight. "Given the inconsistencies between the officer's testimony and the video evidence, we do not believe we can meet our burden beyond a reasonable doubt." Judge Hanley nods slowly. Motion granted. The charge of assault on a police officer is dismissed with prejudice. She looks at Amara. For the first time, there's something like softness in her eyes. Not quite apology, but close. "Ms. Bennett, you are released on your own recognizance. The remaining lesser charges will be addressed in a separate hearing, but you will not be remanded to custody today." The shackles at Amara's ankles feel heavier in that moment, as if they want to remind her they existed at all. "Additionally," the judge says, turning to Castillo, "this court recommends that the district attorney's office refer Officer Blake's conduct to Internal Affairs and the State Oversight Commission. The integrity of sworn testimony is non-negotiable in this courtroom. Do I make myself clear?" "Crystal, Your Honor," Castillo says, looking like he's chewing gravel. The gavel falls. It's done, or at least this part is. The holding room beige looks different on the way out. It's still ugly, still hopeless in color, but the air feels lighter, as if some invisible pressure has eased. The corrections officer unlocks Amara's cuffs, then the chain at her ankles. The release of metal leaves her skin tender. She rubs faint bruises on her wrists, flexing her fingers. Aunt Layla stands in the doorway, eyes shining, one hand pressed to her chest like she's reminding herself her heart is still there. "They just let you walk," she says, voice trembling with incredulous joy. "Girl, they just let you walk." "Not exactly," Amara says, but she can't keep a tiny smile from tugging at the corner of her mouth. She looks down at her own clothes folded in a plastic bag on the chair. Jeans, hoodie, sneakers. Suddenly, they look like freedom. "Get dressed," Naomi says gently from beside her. "We'll talk outside." In the tiny restroom off the holding room, Amara changes out of the jumpsuit, savoring the slide of denim against her legs, the familiar weight of her hoodie. When she pulls it over her head, the cotton smells like her bed at home. Laundry detergent and something indefinable she has always thought of as her. She stares at herself in the mirror. The girl looking back has a new hardness around her eyes. But she's still there. When she steps back into the hallway, Naomi is waiting, a flash drive in her hand. "What's that?" Amara asks. "The evidence packet," Naomi says. "Body cam logs, hotel footage, transcripts. My office will keep copies, of course, for the oversight process. But I thought you should have something. It's a small thing. Light. It sits in Naomi's palm like a sliver of black plastic nothing. Amara takes it, closing her fingers around the cool shell. It's strange. How much weight can live in something so small? Will he? Amara starts, then stops, throat tightening. Will anything actually happen to him? Naomi's face is carefully neutral. There will be an internal affairs investigation, she says. Our oversight commission will review his conduct. The perjury is serious. So is the deliberate deactivation of the camera. He may face departmental discipline, possibly decertification, possibly charges. Possibly, Amara repeats. Naomi's gaze is steady. I won't lie to you, baby. The system moves slowly. It protects itself. When one of its own steps out of line, it hesitates. But you now have his actions on record. That matters. It makes it harder for him to harm someone else quietly. Amara nods, though the answer sits uneasily. So he gets to go home tonight, she says, like I do. Naomi doesn't flinch. Yes. And if I hadn't called you? Naomi closes her eyes briefly, then opens them. If you hadn't called me, you would probably be taking a plea right now, she says. You would be walking out with a criminal record for a crime you didn't commit. The honesty stings, but it's better than the alternative. I don't want that to be the reason I'm free, Amara says quietly. Because of who you are. Naomi tilts her head. What reason would you prefer? Because of the truth, Amara says. Because of the tape. Because anyone could see he lied. Naomi's expression softens. Those things are linked, she says. The truth exists whether or not anyone looks. Power is the ability to make people look. That's messed up, Amara mutters. Yes, Naomi says simply. It is. They start walking toward the exit, Aunt Layla flanking Amara's other side like a bodyguard. The hallway opens into the main atrium, all glass and echoing footsteps and security scanners. People glance up as they pass, some recognizing Naomi, some recognizing the girl from the courtroom. Madam Attorney General, someone calls, a reporter already lifting a microphone. Do you have any comment on— Not at this time, Naomi says smoothly, barely breaking stride. My office will issue a statement. What will that say? Amara asks under her breath. That justice was served today in one small instance, Naomi says, and that we have work to do. Amara snorts softly. Of course it will. They push through the glass doors into the cooling afternoon. Outside, the afternoon has cooled, the glass facade of the courthouse catching the sky in fractured squares of pale blue. Amara steps out with her mother on one side and her aunt on the other, the three of them moving slowly down the wide stone steps, like they have nowhere urgent to be. Someone snaps a photo. Someone else whispers her name. She lets the sounds smear into background. An ocean. In her hand, the plastic case holding the flash drive feels absurdly small, as if the evidence that nearly broke her could slip between her fingers. At the bottom of the steps, Amara pauses. A trash can overflows with crumpled coffee cups and a discarded "Back the Blue" sticker pressed along the rim. She peels it loose, smooths the edges flat, and leaves it resting on the cold stone ledge beside her mother's briefcase. Not thrown away. Just moved.